to validate a study report done by the Malawi Economic Justice Network, merging with support from the NCA-DCA Malawi. And this study covers the status quo of the civil society space in Malawi. I now hand over you to Mr. Mike Banda, who is the Director of Ceremonies.
Thank you very much and welcome back. As I said, we will get one or two immediate reactions from the president, and that will push us into of discussion. So, by a show of hand, I will recognize you and give you an opportunity to speak, and then we'll move as guided. So any takers, please? Okay, I recognize Robert, Joanna, Henry, John. I'll be very stingy with my time, so I'll take those four, and then we'll get into a panel of discussion, and then we'll open another plenary after the panel of discussion. So I recognize Robert, and then Joanna, Henry, and John, in that order.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Mahara, just want to appreciate the work that you've done in coming up with this report. I don't have questions per se, but areas to point out for consideration. The first is a general observation that one of the key things that we've faced as a challenge on civic space is where it has been seen like the issue of civic space is a fight between government and NGOs. And because of that animosity between us as the antagonistic forces, there's always been efforts to clamp down on us. But I think we should move the debate beyond NGOs for civil society, because it's not only NGOs who need space, it's civil society in that sense, including citizens. So if we push this battle towards making sure that Malawians as citizens need space, yeah, to operate on, and not only NGOs, that may help our cause. And again, I think it's a chain reaction, because there are so many other things that we need to take into consideration. How do we define civil society, for example? Because I see that we're talking about civil society, but we're also talking about civil society organizations, which are, well, they could be related, but they're two different things. Now, if we push the organization more, that's where I think we meet a lot of resistance. The second one is on one of the recommendations of donor funding or donor support shrinking. I would agree with that, but I would want to extend it to say that's an what I would call an upward linkage. But I would also want us to link civil society to citizens. Because if you just think that the donors are the ones that are going to facilitate our work, with the current developments, I think we should learn that the civil society should be grounded in the citizens. These are the people that should support us, these are the people that should provide resources for us, and these are the people that should voice the need for organizations to operate freely. So that point of just focusing on the donors, I think it's a bit, not misplaced, but narrowly focused. We need to ground civil society in the support that we get from citizens, and not only from donors. There's an issue of advocacy issue on civic space, and I think there was talk of a civic space policy. I would want to say let's navigate on that one very, very carefully, because there are so many other provisions that are there to guard the civic space. Do we need a policy specifically on civic space? Or we can appeal to all these other provisions that are there and make sure that they're working. If we narrow it to civic space policy, focusing only for NGOs. We also have got the NGO policy, for example. How do they relate to those? So I would want us to be very, very careful in navigating around that area, not to compromise on some of the provisions that are already there. I think let me stop there. You said already that you'll be very mean on time, but I've got a number of other areas. If there's time, I would say something on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Robert, we will still engage after the discussion. So,
okay, thank you very much. I'm going to be brief. The first one is something to do with the Cyber Security Act 2016. We all agree that it is outdated, and I would like to recommend that on our recommendations we should also include it, that we should at least review it. Because looking at the technology now, things have changed since 2016. And on finding number 5, there was an issue whereby law enforcers seem complicit to abuse. And this is also coming down to capacity building. Some may be just ignorance, but they may be ignorant, some of them, but most of them do not have the capacity. They do not know how they're supposed to perform or conduct themselves. And there's also one more issue that we need to look at in terms of women participation. We have talked about minority groups, we have talked about people with disabilities, people living with HIV, but we have missed women participation. Because looking at the civic space, for example, this year we only have 21% representation of women MPs in the parliament, which is very sad per se. So yes, thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. Pass it on to Henry. Dissemination.
I'd like to comment on a few things. I think when we think of civic space currently, there are issues which we need to focus on as we are reflecting as actors and actors. Of key issues is understanding the ecosystem of civic space in mind. And what does as we are actually at the speed up the laws challenge is how or what's the level of understanding of these provisions, even for us as defenders of the civic space. We have, for example, the regulations that have been, few regulations, at least 3 have been gazetted. How many of us are aware of the gazetted regulations of the CSS NGO Act? But also issues of capacity to influence and capacity to engage for the CSOs. Are we positioned in a manner that we can meaningfully influence the changes and decisions as regards to the government, or maybe structures that can infringe or shrink the space? So I think these areas, they need to, if possible, if the study could try to answer or provide some reflections on our capacity as CSOs, on who has the power to shrink or expand the space, the level of awareness of the legal instruments that we have, so that we can meaningfully engage and influence. Otherwise, in some instances, we complain and lament for issues that are already existing. Mechanisms are already there, but because you are not aware, then we come in and lament. So I think these are some of the key areas that we need to focus on.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Let me also appreciate the consultant for the job well done. Really appreciate it for the comprehensive assessment, but also unearthing some of the critical issues affecting our civic space in Malawi. I work in the child sector, and therefore my comment will be centering around that. I just wanted to maybe it's a comment, but also a proposal for a further assessment, just to see if this makes sense. So children and young people, we are seeing a number of activities in this space. Save the Children, along with others like NGO Sarah, who are in the room, we have seen children actively participating in the civic and political rights space through child parliaments and other platforms, which some of them government has adopted them as the official spaces. So I feel we shouldn't, one of the recommendations is to be nurturing these emerging groups of children and young people who I think over time will take the space of most of us who are already, retiring in this space. And that also brings me to the issue of leadership in the civil society spectrum. I think much as the activism is passion, but I think there must be deliberate intentions to nurture the young ones, sort of like succession planning, for lack of a better word, so that I think there was some of the examples that Mr. Chisi highlighted, those that have been in the forefront before, but now they're no longer young, they're no longer physically active. But if you ask, have they groomed the young people? Yes, maybe, or maybe not. So I think that's another critical area in the civic space. In a number of civil society organizations, if we can try also to be deliberate, to build capacity and leadership so that they're able to, young ones are able to take, the space, and maybe they can come up with the better energy and motivation, taking into account their many issues that they face in the space. For young people, you talk of issues of unemployment, for instance. So maybe leadership building would be one of the things I would recommend, building on what is emerging from the children, but also from the youth sector. So I believe those can also help in as far as ensuring that they're able, the space is not shrinking in the sense of maybe capacity weakening, but expanding, where young people are identifying critical issues that affect them in the current moments. Finally, I think I wanted to touch also on the funding. I think you talked about maybe government can fund in a secret way. I should say, maybe let's be bold enough to recommend that government should, and I think they have started. Through Ngora, last time we saw the advert which came out inviting, NGOs to apply for funding. However, it's good that the CEO is here. I think one of the things that civil society pointed out was that I think the guidelines also, is it targeted the local councils, the district councils, which I think by default they're neither, and I think councils have got a wide spectrum of funding. But I felt maybe Ngora there could do better, and I think maybe that as one society to continue engaging in this space using the resources that are and economic can help. The funding space, but also
so that I don't feel sorry for you, so that we move as per guided. Apologies for that, but we'll engage into the next levels of plenary after the panel of discussion. I would give just 2 minutes to Mr. Mahala. I think majority of them have been comments on how best we can perfect the report and also include some of the aspects that are seemingly missing, but probably you have 1 or 2 that you would want to respond on. If not, then we can proceed with the panel and then engage into another plenary after that. Is there anything you would want to respond, Mr. Mahala?
Yeah, most of them are comments. I should say all of them are comments. Going through, I don't see any questions, and most of these comments are correct. Okay, all these raised are correct, and they will be looked at and greatly improve the report. Maybe just also to mention, now going to the next, but the others have already highlighted more than what has been asked here. For example, Mr. Robert, I mentioned already there are some more. Maybe if they can be shared with you and then forward to me. If space will not allow after the panel discussion. If space will allow, it's fine. But if it doesn't allow, we shouldn't miss that. Maybe if they can be forwarded to Meiji and then forward them to me. Thank you.
Thank you. That said and done, we'll move straight into the panel of discussion. And our panelists this morning, it's still morning, yes, will be Mr. Moses Tulo, Media Institute for Southern Africa, Malawi chapter. He's the program manager there. A big round of applause for Mr. Chisulo as he takes to the plant. Another panelist will be Mr. Michael Kayatsa, who is the chairperson for Human Rights Defenders Coalition. He is also the executive director for Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation. Coming to the plant, please. A big round of applause as Mr. Kayatsa is walking to the plant. And this discussion would be empty if we did not have the regulator for this type of discussion. So allow me to invite Dr. Alombe, who is the CEO for Ngola. A big round of applause for Dr. Alombe as he takes to the plant. And will be our guest from the market, who is no other than Mr. Chisi. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the space is already shrinking here. No, but when we were inviting my Human Rights Commission, it was the executive secretary, and then when we were inviting NISA, it was the vice chairperson, Nguluwe. Yeah. So, and then this is Betha speaking. So it was female dominated. So this is Betha speaking. So thank you so much for that observation. But we were deliberate in the invitation. The guest of honor was supposed to be the Executive Secretary for Malawi Human Rights Commission, Excellency Habiba Osman, but she delegated. As we are aware, as we are here in Parliament, the Minister is also presenting a mid-year budget review in Parliament, so she must have been there by default. All right, thank you so much, the panel. We'll go straight into the discussion. I'll go straight to the regulator, Dr. Alombe. First, let me congratulate you for assuming that position. I think it's just been a few weeks since you assumed, since you assumed that position, but also would like to thank you for accepting to be part and parcel of this discussion. As a regulator, you've heard the report, a lot of issues that are coming out. Some could be perceptions, some could be facts, but as a regulator, you sitting in that position of regulation amidst all these issues that are coming out and the issues that the report has highlighted, what do you make out of that, Dr. Alombe?
All right, thank you so much, Mejin, and colleagues present here. This is my first time that appearance, deliberately so, because when you are new to any office, you need to understand. And I think I now have a fair view. My immediate light observation is that the job description of the CEO of Ngora, but also the mandate of the institution are very clear. But then there appears to be some unwritten mandate, which is what seems to be haunting this group. And I would want to assure everybody present here that as far as the written mandate and the job description of myself and other colleagues are concerned, then we are all safe. I do know, of course, along the way there will always be some noise that comes. That noise ideally doesn't and shouldn't come from Ngora. It may come from other voices, other entities, and we've no control over that. What you should be worried is what we are doing on ground. Having said that, allow me to really thank the consultant for the good work. I think a lot of preliminary comments have been provided. I will not try to amplify them, but indicate the following, and maybe this is also something that personally, when the definition of civic space was being provided by the consultant, there were two elements there. The first one is that particular opening where people are able to express themselves. And then beyond expressing themselves, there should be that ability to undertake actions to address those particular issues I have observed. Now, I would want to really throw it back, not only to ourselves as Ngora, but to everybody here, to think of what is it that is holding us from not undertaking necessary actions to address whatever issues we observe. Obviously, one of them could be the perception that is there about the threats, where maybe you feel there could be some deregistration, where it is it is deemed so. But I look at the constraints beyond those particular threats. There are a number of constraints that are structural in nature. For example, the fact that the resource base that is being that accrues to civil society organizations is continuously shrinking. Is there anything we can do? My brother White already gave a suggestion that can we look at the resources beyond the traditional donors, and what is it that the communities can be doing? Now, that is precisely what we should also be discussing. What are the impediments that are preventing us from undertaking the necessary actions based on the issues that we have observed in the civic space? Having said that, I also want to indicate that a lot of issues that have been recommended in terms of how they can be addressed. Of course, there was a suggestion of whether we need a separate strategy or policy. You may want to know that currently the NGO policy is at cabinet level. The one which is being reworked is at cabinet level, and I should think in a couple of months' time it should be out. There are a number of thematic areas or priority areas, and one of them is the sustainability of the operations of NGOs, but also the resources that should be accruing to different civil society organizations. So these are issues that are already being addressed. They may not be coming out in the way we are discussing here, but I can assure the public here that what I have gathered so far and what I have found, there is considerable work being championed in that particular regard. So, as I had earlier said, what is provided for in the Ngora Act is very clear, and if we were to follow that to the letter, there shouldn't be anybody threatened, because I'll just give you an example. If the role of Ngora is to provide a conducive environment, because it's very clear, a conducive environment for the operations of civil society organizations or NGOs, a conducive environment would include addressing some of the issues that are being presented here, isn't it? If we are there to ensure that there is the development of independent civil society organizations, what does that entail? It entails looking at what are the issues. Are you afraid of expressing yourself? No, let's address those things. So legally, we are well covered, but maybe it could be operationally, and that those operational issues are very easy to deal with through perhaps these particular engagements, because you are giving us feedback and we should be able to address them. Thank you so much. Those would be my preliminary comments at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Longwe. Coming to you, Mr. Kayat, also thank you, and also congratulate you for assuming the modest seat of the chairperson for HRTC, which is at the center of all these things that we are discussing about. From HRTC perspective, Mr. Kayat, what do you make of the report, and what's the status as of now? I think we are seeing a lot of things already in the media talking about the issue of civic space. What do you make of that, and also in relation to the report that we have just heard? Mr. Kaya.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moderator. I would want to begin by also congratulating you, Dr. Lombe, for the position that you have occupied, and also continue from where you have stopped, especially where you're talking about the law. I'll talk about the threats that we are facing. Also an issue by the consultant, is important that we have, I think, a clear understanding of the fears that are there in the civil society about this law. So the NGO Amendment Act is not entirely bad. It's a good piece of legislation that has some body elements in it that need to be addressed. It's good in the sense that the idea is to bring sanity in the NGO sector, which is not a bad thing. I think everybody loves sanity. It's a good thing. Some provisions that are really problematic for the smooth operation of NGOs. I would not want to point out all those provisions, but suffice to say that there's a lot of fear. If you look at the reports that you generate yourselves as the NGO regulatory authority, every year you produce a list of NGOs that have complied and a list of NGOs that have not complied. We've been following up, we've been following closely those reports that we usually publish in the newspapers. And when you see the trend, it gets scary to think that over 400 NGOs have failed to comply consistently for the last 3 years. That is scary. It's scary. Why? It's scary because the law says if you have not complied, if an NGO has not complied for 3 consecutive years, it will automatically be deregistered. Now, if you look at those reports that you issue, I know of CSOs that have not complied consistently for the last 3 years. And the number is not small. The number is huge. I don't have the exact figures, but over 400 that have not complied. What that means is that at the end of this year, those ones will have to be automatically deregistered. If we're talking about the shrinking civic space, that's what we're talking about. Because having 400 plus NGOs deregistered, that's really expanding in the civic space. That's actually shrinking. I want to commend the efforts that Angola has been making over the years. I know Angola has been reaching out to those NGOs that are struggling, I'm using struggling with inverted commas, to see how best they can support them. I don't know how far you have gone to provide the support. I know there are issues to do with audits. Some NGOs are not able to do audits because obviously audits are not cheap, they are expensive. I don't know how far you have gone. Maybe if you have information, I know you are still new in the office, you could provide an update on that one. But for me and for us, I'm now speaking on behalf of HRDC and the other organizations that I represent, it's a fear. We cannot have such a huge rate of non-compliance. It's not healthy. It means there's something wrong with the law or the way it's being implemented. Now, coming to the issue of the threats that as HRD we are facing. This morning, the Southern Africa Human Rights Defenders Network issued a statement condemning the threats that HRDs in Malawi are facing. And I would want to isolate a number of issues that have been raised. Number one is the threats, especially people are facing, especially online. Now, this is from a statement that the president made in Mangochi a few weeks after assuming office. It was, I think, around 12 or 11 October this year. This was just a few weeks after the president assumed office. And he made a statement in Mangochi to say, I know some organizations are planning demonstrations. We know them, and we also know who are funding those organizations. This was the president speaking, right? And he said, I'll bite you. Ndugulumani. I know you and I'll come and bite you. Those words came out from the president, and we know, and we saw what happened immediately afterwards. We saw social media posts, people making posts threatening HRDC and other organizations. But the main target was HRDC. Some of us were, okay, I don't care about being insulted. I can be insulted. Everybody can be. Nobody's immune to insults. But threats like, yeah, we know where you live. We know where your kids go to school. That is a threat. That is a threat. And that's what we're talking about. Threats that are coming immediately after a head of state has issued such a statement. For me, I've said, I don't know of any organization that is planning demonstrations. We are not. We have no reason to, at the moment. We have no reasons have been inherited. Concern for us. If you see, people have gone into
hiding. I know of some CSOs leaders that do not even want to speak publicly, for fear that, hey, I will be targeted. There are individuals that have requested even security support. As a program where we are supporting HRDs at risk. It's a small grant. And if you 2 weeks ago we announced, publicly, and the response has been so writing letters, about the threats that they're facing. And I'm talking about we know people can fabricate stories, but you read a story and you say, this cannot be fabricated. And they're providing as well, screenshots of the threats that they have received. It's really scary, and something really must be done to address these threats. Let me stop there for now.
So I will speak from both the sources' point of view and the media's point of view, because we are looking at the civic space in general. So the media in Malawi seems to be operating in a free environment, but there are threats that are happening in the background that may not be other people may not know. There is some kind of, for example, self-censorship that is happening because of the what we call the political economy of the media, where the media is not doing much in terms of, for example, investigative journalism and other kind of journalism, accountability journalism, because there are threats of the business interests. For example, the commercial interests, where big companies, for example, are threatening the media not to publish some of the things that those corporate, the corporate world is doing, because they will withdraw advertising, for example. And then we also have the political interests, where there are threats from the politicians to media houses, more especially maybe targeting the top management. And then in that way, there is some kind of self-censorship where the media is like, maybe we don't have to publish this because we may lose business with these people. And then we also have attacks on the individual journalists, where they are receiving threats online. There is also some kind of misinformation and disinformation that is happening online to do with the media practitioners. When they become more critical, people, maybe the political agents and the other people, are creating stories online targeting the media practitioners to make sure that they tarnish the image of these media practitioners so that they don't become critical. We also have we have seen some positive developments in the past maybe 10 years. The access to information law, for example, coming in, but the access to information law may be there on paper. Where we see government institutions still failing to provide information on request. For example, we had an issue to do with the nation publications asking for information on the public appointments to do with those people who were the embassies. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs said it was an issue to do with the public security, and they could not do that. The Malawi Human Rights Commission even came in to force the ministry to release that information, but they still did not do the same. So we see that there are some positive developments that are happening, but at the same time we have some resistance within the government. And then we have laws that have been repealed, laws to do with sedition. We also had the removal of the name of the president in the Protected Flag, Emblems and Names Act as one of the names that are protected, so it was fine. We also saw the decriminalization of defamation by the courts. We also had the Data Protection Act acted, but we see a case of maybe robbing Peter to pay Paul, where the government is now using other laws to still shrink the space. For example, we have the Electronic Transactions Act that has been highlighted in the report, and we see that it is being used now to silence the critical voices, and that is very bad. And then we have the sources that have also reported to the media to say, I cannot say anything on this issue because I don't want to be threatened by the state agents or other pro-government people. So I think the space is a mixed reaction or is a mixed bag in terms of the laws being enacted, at the same time other laws being used to shrink the space. I should stop there for now.
Has been compliance, except this one particular case, which Mr. is referring to, which was against the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As we speak, we wrote our determination, which we communicated to the concerned ministry. We also wrote the Office of the Inspector General of Police, because we thought that by not complying with our decision, they were disobeying the law. And the disobedience of the law required action by the Malawi Police Service so that these people could be taken to task legally. Again, Malawi Police Service did not act according to our determination. What is available in that scenario? So there are three layers of opportunities for people to have to get information. The first one is the internal review mechanism, where one is supposed to request for an internal review of that decision. The second one is an external review. Information seeker seeks the support of the Malawi recommendations. If the process still fails, the case with the current matter, it means now they have to seek redress from the courts. So we have not yet communicated to our client, but which I'm preempting. But to respond to the question, what is available after you have exhausted all those procedures, internal and external, you now have to go to the courts. That's how it works. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. GC. Comments or questions pertaining to what our members have said, or the general presentation that the consultant gave. So I recognize two hands from this way, Robert, then Paxton, then we'll close to Kelly, Karuzi, and Mr. Let's start.
This shrinking space yonde mene 1 minute muntu manimana main session. Okay, thank you. I will try to do it in 7 minutes. My submission is part of an answer but also a concern. That perhaps I believe the starting point on the shrinking space and victimization of human rights defenders starts with a sober reflection of the NGO Act, and that's an assignment to CEO Angola. We have made positions as CSOs before the Act was amended. It was forcefully implemented. We have no choice. We are supposed to abide by it. But it's high time we sat down and reviewed it, because we have not been sure what forces were behind that review. But maybe now we can be sober. Hence the assignment. Why am I saying this? Is one element is the issue of regulation. We did not want to be regulated, but the challenges we are currently facing that are a result of leading to shrinking of the space is created by ourselves. I think Robert White had raised the issue of maybe leaving no one behind. I have in mind the so-called voice note activists. They just wake up, record an audio, and implicate Benedicto Kondo. He has received 80 million from MCP to cause demonstrations. How positioned and prepared are we to police that as NGO Angola? Malawi Human Rights Commission, how are we interfacing to ensure that the rights, for instance, of Benedicto Kondo, as an example, are guaranteed, whilst also allowing freedom of expression to go on the ground, to allow those voice note guys to do that. So you have the Mutanywas, the Bakiri Munozi TVs, they can just raise issues without being policed and checked. So that's why I'm saying we need to review our positions and the Act, because if we said we didn't want to be regulated, then this is what we're experiencing. But to an extent, Angola may not be able to hold to account TV, Mutanywa, or whether it's Bonicalindo, because they are not regulated or they are not registered. So how do we balance these two? So it is in that respect that I would like to submit that I think colleagues, Malawi Human Rights Commission and Angola, you have a role to play to ensure that this space is indeed protected and guaranteed by ensuring that no one is left behind. Again, one area which was raised by Malawi Human Rights Commission is the issue of some CSOs have been swallowed in government. Maybe we also need to have a session one day to reflect on that, to say, is that an opportunity or a threat? Because my understanding is our role as CSOs is to complement government efforts. And what we fight for is what we want an ideal government to implement. Now, if government sees potential in us and appoints us ambassadors or advisor to president on NGOs, is that is the space shrinking or is growing? Yeah, so these are things which now goes to the individual being to say, how are they behaving when they are appointed? Are they empowering the sector they are coming from? Or they are the ones contributing to the downfall? Because we have had advisors to the presidents who were busy parading lies to the presidents. That resulted in most NGOs closing down. And then I like the submission by Michael, who said this Angola is mandated to close an NGO which has stayed 3 years or so. Is that fair? There were efforts to reach out to NGOs, and there was a fund that was created. I would appreciate if the guidelines for those funds were reviewed, because it is essential to empower our NGOs. In China, you can't go to an international forum and you have an NGO attacking their own country. They are adequately funded locally. The Norwegian funds we receive, the Swedish funds we receive, they come from government to empower NGOs. What is wrong with our government supporting our NGOs to grow their capacity? And lastly, out of the 7 issues, is the ability to meaningfully work together. I always point to Malawi Human Rights Commission because maybe we're in the same sector, the human rights sector. You do quite a lot in carrying out investigations and publish reports. The challenge is there's no follow-up mechanism. Today you have said, okay, if nothing happens, go to the courts. But would want to come in as CSOs. There has to be a partnership. There were some committees that were formed, Civic and Political Rights, where CSOs were incorporated in the board of Malawi Human Rights Commission, but they never functioned. If we can resuscitate those ones, to ensure that whatever you pronounce as Malawi Human Rights Commission, likewise Ombudsman, interface with CSOs to take up those issues. So that may require information, but also resources-wise, because you have expended too much. You have spent money to investigate a matter, and then you have brought it to the public. But for us to advocate for such issues, then you say, Mona, find your own funding. That's where there's a challenge. But if we can partner, we should be the advocates of your recommendations. Then you find we are bringing to account duty bearers, and in the end, there will be enforcement of your recommendations and resolutions. Otherwise, majority of them will continue being shelved and no action taken on them. That's under 2 minutes, so I'll come back.
Thank you very much. I will start commenting on the report. I think I have heard much of the legal and policy context. Whether maybe the detailed report has some issues to do with the political and the socio-economic context, because that is also one of the key areas which is limiting the civic space. The political actions, I know on the economic part of it, issue of donor funding and so on, I think it was that, but I would also like to, the political and the socio-economic context of the civic space to stand out in that report, but also to touch on the role of the judiciary and the parliament, because in most of the cases, we refer to the executive arm of the government as either limiting or expanding the civic space. But we haven't heard much on the part of judiciary, but also parliament. For judiciary, I have in mind of some of the judgments that comes of the judiciary. Sometimes they also limit the civic space, like when it comes to matters of public litigation. So I would like the report also to touch on that, and also probably to come out with the specific gaps relating to the recommendations thereof, so that if there will be any other advocacy work to be done, then we may identify it from that report to say, okay, there is this gap, and this is the recommendation. Maybe as an organization, let us run with what has been recommended. Lastly, I would like Mr. Kayatsa probably to comment on the recommendation to do with the developing civic space strategy and the plan of action for Malawi to guide operations of CSOs. Because another school of thought thinks that when you have strategies or policies or the act itself, sometimes it is also limiting the civic space, because it tells the sector what they can do and what they cannot do. So if the recommendation is to develop a strategy or plan of action for CSOs in Malawi to guide their operations, in my view, that is also limiting the civic space. So maybe Mr. Kayetsa would comment on that recommendation. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation, our consultant, and the colleagues on front on the panel. Yeah, so my word is one is for the new Ngora DG, that I think we need to be looking at now, for example, the fees that Ngora is getting each and every year. This is my opinion, that this is a government institution, a parastatal in nature, that is getting resources from the civil society organizations and the NGOs each and every year, while this regulator is also getting money for registration. So I don't know that where we adopted this, because to me it does not make sense if the organization is registered, then and paid the fees for registration, as we do with the Registrar General's office. I don't think we are supposed to be providing also resources, for example, the membership fee, as like you are just a mere NGO, like a network, for example, Ngati Kongoma, and other network organizations that we do a yearly subscription. So that one, I feel is, that's why sometimes you find out that a lot of NGOs does not comply, because they are looking at the issues of cost-benefit analysis on that context. Another thing is where did we took this arrangement of Ngora opening offices in each and every district, and for what purpose? And the offices to do what, and the resources going there that are supposed maybe to build the capacity of NGOs in the country, or what are the facts that we are basing on to open the offices? Another thing is looking at how the development partners and donors. It seems that there is less protection from though the regulations are there to say development partners are supposed to work through the local NGOs. But in essence, that's not like that. A lot of development partners are working on the ground. And they also claim within districts. We compete in terms of developing proposals with them to submit to ex-donor. Yeah, so I'm looking at that as if you're talking about civic space, we need also to be looking at the resources that might mandate us to do the task on the ground. So another thing is the Malawi Human Rights Commission. This is the commission that is also supposed to be standing for the people, making sure that the citizens have got a well-represented government institution when it comes to human rights. However, in terms of decentralization, Malawi Human Rights Commission is not decentralized. If it is a case in Karonga, you travel from here, maybe to deal with a case in Chitipa, Rumbi, Nzimba, and Sanje, I feel this is the high time that we need to be looking at how do we decentralize the Malawi Human Rights Commission. A lot of these government human rights institutions, they are not yet decentralized. Their functions at the local level, they are not yet there. So access to justice there is compromised and questionable. Yeah, so this is what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to ride on the sentiments that were shared by Citizen Alliance, that perhaps we need recommendations. Those recommendations based on the weaknesses or this has to do with Malawi Human Rights Commission. Approach that we are having now, I don't know whether it's because of the law or what, but most of it, I think it's reactive. A recommendation that perhaps maybe we need some sort of a civic space area warning system, move forward, and in terms of its constitution, we can look at some people who are not really civil society, but maybe from retired judges and all this and that, researchers, yeah, who can really sit independently and help us review all these laws and say, okay, I think this law is going to have this kind of impact on your work as civil society organizations, and you need to engage in this regard. And I believe that 6 team can also help us move forward in what to advocate. The other issue I wanted to point out amongst ourselves. And through that, I'm riding on the presentation that was made by our colleague for media. But just as the media, I think even CSOs, we do a lot of self-censorship. And that is one of the factors that is incapacitating us from advancing some of these issues. So we have to look at our relationship, maybe with a donor. This will put ourselves in the spotlight. We have seen a lot of documents that members or maybe NGOs need to sign, but sometimes they fear that if our name appears there, then we may not be able to get support, or maybe we create a bad name and so on and so forth. So, yeah, to move forward, we need to consider seriously. Otherwise, maybe we may have an NGO Act that is, and what is needed for the country. And the second, the fourth issue is we leave out some of these issues to the people who are always on. So that's why there's a concern. I don't know, but it could be an arrangement within ourselves as civil society organizations to see if we can, has led to ourselves not defending each other when there's an issue. If they make a statement against a particular civil society, we are waiting for the regular ones to issue a statement. Yeah, so another issue, local government, in our view, or in my view, is becoming the front line of all this censorship, and they're hiding protocols. So we believe that stakeholders maybe need a framework that can detach that kind of restriction from us, so that when we go to the district, we're able to we need. For example, if an NGO wants to do something, maybe want to do some work on my council for you to do this kind of work, but we're just going there to do advancement, and so that should also be an area that the consultant can make some recommendations on. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I just have a few things to point out. My colleague from Citizen Alliance had already talked to that. I was wondering whether this report critically looked at the issue of the social and political actors, the role of social and political actors in this civic space. We are looking at the traditional leaders. I haven't seen that coming out very clearly, even religious leaders. And what about the political actors? What is their role? And also looking at the civic education bodies. I don't know whether you critically also looked at the role that they play in this space. We talked about the physical and technological spaces in view of the civic space which we are referring to. I didn't see MACRA coming out very clearly. I don't know whether you did an analysis to say how does MACRA come into play when we talk about this issue of civic space. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mine will be an overlap comment to HRDC as well as the presentation. So you talked about a grant that is given to human rights defenders, those that need protection. But issues of inclusion are also coming in. I feel like spaces still shrinks in terms of inclusion, further because of the history of where we're coming from. How have human rights defenders been protected in the past? The history that, in terms of looking backwards, what have we done? And also awareness that there is a security space. Thank you.
And then I will get back to the panelists so that we respond to the issues that were directed to us and also find a way. So, the far left with Ms. Amalawi. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that were raised was the issue of MACRA. I think I needed to say something on the same, being a body that is controlling the media. So I think you also need to take into consideration the issue of MACRA, which is a regulatory body for the media. Because MACRA is playing a regulatory role, but at the same time, maybe some of the decisions that MACRA is making are also infringing on the freedom of expression or the operations of the media, where, for example, the MACRA may be, the monitoring tool may restrict or may limit what the media house may publish or may air out. Another issue was to do with the economy in the civic space. I think we can talk about the poverty that is there in the civic space and how it is driving some of the colleagues in the space to the politics or the political groupings. If you noted, you noted that some of the civic space players are like opportunists who are taking advantage of the space. This in terms of the poverty that is there in the civic space, where many organizations do not have any funding, and then maybe the individuals in those organizations are forced to to align themselves with a political party with an aim of getting something at the end of the day. So that's why you see maybe you even wonder some of the press briefings, and you don't differentiate between a press briefing of a civil society organization or a press briefing of a political party or of a political party. So I think we need to also to address this poverty in the civic space, and I don't know whether we can do recommendations on what we can do in terms of addressing the poverty that is striking individuals in the civic space. I think that's what I can directly say.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comments and also questions that have come from the audience. There's an issue that I wanted to address. I think this one came from it came from Citizen Alliance regarding the issue of the recommendation for a strategy to guide the operations of CSOs. You have a slightly different opinion from the consultant. My view is who develops this strategy? How is it going to have very serious
that we would really welcome at this time, looking at the Malawi context. I know in other countries, in some countries, strategies have been developed, and in some countries they have been effective in protecting the civic space, and in others they have had the opposite effect. In the Malawi context, I don't think that would be the best thing to do. We have a policy already, of course, it's being reviewed. We have a law, the NGO Act, and we have regulations. I think these are enough. These are enough to guide the operations of CSOs or NGOs. Bringing additional would only overburden NGOs. But it's an idea that maybe needs to be explored further. For me, it's not something that would support at this moment, unless maybe there's a clear way of defining it in terms of who is going to own it and how is it going to be implemented. There are strategies that are developed with good intentions, but implementation things tend to turn south. So it's important to have a cautious approach towards that. There was the issue of, I think it was raised by, forgotten, but the issue of the courts, the judiciary. How is the judiciary safeguarding or contributing to the, especially when you consider what has been happening and what is happening even now for NGOs that have attempted strategic litigation. The experience of organizations like YAS, HRDC has not been really palatable. It has actually been a very bad experience working with the courts on the public interest litigation. I do not want to go into details, but you remember what happened to Youth and Society when they attempted public litigation. It ended up with the courts slapping very prohibitive costs, which forced the YASI to seek remedies outside the country. They went to an African court. And the same has happened also to HRDC. I think many people are not aware. But HRDC has also been slapped with costs. We're supposed to pay over 60 million. And now there's an order. This came from the Supreme Court. There's now an order to freeze our assets. And HRDC doesn't even have a single asset. And she what? I left you. You see?
So I think we need to interrogate the role of the courts. Are the courts really helping citizens or not? Are they helping to expand the civic space, or are they shrinking it? Because the court should be a refuge if your rights have been violated. But if you go to court and then you end up with such a huge prohibitive costs, there will be no incentive for people to go to the courts next time. Already, there's an issue I will bring into the Human Rights Commission regarding access to with the Minister of Trade and with the Treasury. We are fighting a request that we made. It was denied, it was rejected. We go to the courts. I know we are coming to your office, Peter, but if your office doesn't help us, you should go to the courts and looking at these costs that have been imposed on the litigants. Is it the best way to do? So I think you need to interrogate the role of the courts. And then finally, the issue of support for human rights defenders. I didn't understand the question. The question clearly, but there have been attempts before to support human rights defenders. These have always been ad hoc and also not well coordinated. This time around, we're trying to come up with something that can be well coordinated and also something that it can really be, that can make a difference in the life of a human rights defender. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alo. Thank you so much. There were a number of questions, of course, that were directed to Ngora. Some are being attempted, but suffice to say that I, for one, do believe that the only thing that one of the fundamental taken out of a human being is that ability to express his. Now, this is bordering on the, of course, a lot of threats, and I must say that Ngora as an institution does not work in isolation, or should not work in isolation, as ensuring that our civic space is well guarded. And it would be very important that perhaps for us we can try to work very closely in ensuring that whatever issues are being raised, we are supposed to work with our respective partners in the public realm, bringing these particular issues, because ensuring that there is that free space, ensuring that there is an unlimited development of civil service organizations is part of our mandate. So if we can be in the same direction, and we should be able to help you in the early stages of the regime change. The issue of localization, I think there was a question which has been presented. I must say that indeed we have the regulations in as far as the operations of international NGOs is concerned, and one of the requirements is that they should ensure that they are working very closely with the local partners. When I came, I wanted to understand what is the status of the localization process, and I didn't get any update. As I'm talking, we have a study or an assessment that we are undertaking, just finding out what's the status, who is doing what, and why are we not doing what is supposed to be done, because that is very, very important. The localization agenda's objectives and benefits cannot be emphasized. And then I also want to indicate that indeed the threat out there is that we will ultimately deregister those NGOs that are not compliant. Of course, that's what the regulations do say. But you should know that Ngora is managed by Malawians. We all know what happens when an NGO has been deregistered. It means people are not working. And I don't think that would be in the best interest of government. That's why, for those that have not been able to comply, there have been a lot of deliberate efforts. You may want to know, however, colleagues, that since I came, when I reviewed the files and the reports that keep on coming to my desk, I noted that there are a number of complaints that do come from the NGOs or civil society that are operating at the district level. And you'll be very surprised. A lot of them are to do with embezzlement of funds. A lot of them. Initially I also had the same feeling that are we not over-caging the civil service? But the moment I started receiving these reports, I said something is wrong. It is very important that governance, by way of ensuring that these institutions are reporting effectively, or giving us their reports on the status of their governance oversight is something that we do not compromise. Having said that, I would also want to indicate that it is in the best interest of ourselves as civil society organization players to really show and demonstrate that when it comes to compliance, we do not have serious problems. I'll give you an example. Out of a lot of NGOs or civil society organizations that have not complied with our requirements for the past 2 years, almost 8 of them are very well known. Very well known. You would actually be surprised. I told my team, I said, look, I'm going to meet them. Because it is actually in their best interest that they should actually demonstrate that they have had board meetings, or they have had they have a board that is in place and that they are able to report, they are able to do ABCD, because what they have been unable to do is exactly what they stand for. And since I know we are on camera here, I want not to mention their names, but I'm sure seriously going to meet them, because I just don't understand why out of all the NGOs it has to be them not complying. So we do understand, and I think this is the issue of the fund that we are managing, a very your dues. Our interest is to see to it that we expand the scope of that particular fund. And this is something we believe we are going to do as soon as possible. Not only relying on government resources, but also on other sources. This is very important for the following reason. Although there is we may also want to know that it is equally in our mutual interest to see and track how public resources, and that a lot of us want to take interest in terms of how our loans are being used on the ground, right? Who is going to do that? I mean, if there is a project in Sanje, for example, there is a dam that is being funded by some loan from African Development Bank. Who is following up on that as civil society organizations? Because it is equally in the interest of the general public that there has to be some accountability. Can we have the support given to you so that you are able to seriously follow and undertake oversight of how those projects are being implemented? Obviously, something we have to do. So we are going to ensure that we expand this particular basket. But having said that, our presence at council level is strategically important, because we are there to ensure that there is coordination of effort. There doesn't have to be duplication in terms of effort. So we believe that in doing so, we are maximizing the benefits that NGOs give to the public as per our mandate. So we seem to be talking the very same things, but it is the careful implementation that seems to matter. And I think I want to congratulate Meji for really initiating such type of dialogue. Let's keep on talking. We are one, and we are going to deliver a very capable civil society space that is conducive to the developmental aspirations of the country. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that assurance, Dr. Longwe. On that note, we are continuing the panel discussion. I've deliberately spared the guest of honor. He will make his comments as he's also delivering a closing remarks, so that we save on time. So a big round of applause for our panelists as they roll back to their seats, while the guest of honor is taken to the podium to officially close, as he also going to respond to some of the issues that were directed to our Human Rights Commission. Thank you.
Moderator, I would like to thank you and also congratulate you for ably facilitating this meeting this morning. It was not easy. We have enjoyed every moment. You have ambushed me to say some closing remarks. But before doing so, let me acknowledge those comments as well as the observations that were sent to MHRC. The first one from my brother, Mr. Mkwezalamba. Recommendations that CSOs and the Commission should work hand in hand, particularly in terms of following up on the recommendations on the investigations, because he believes that not much happens. So indeed, let us work together on the same. Let me just add one thing, that there is a strange working relationship between MHRC and civil society. MHRC is largely a child of civil society. Almost all our commissioners come from the civil society. And the understanding is that with that arrangement, they will be representing civil society when they sit as commission. But what do we see in practice? It seems there is that gap. So once commissioners have been appointed, it's like they are on their own. This is the reason why some are going back to say there were arrangements to have some committees where CSOs would deal with the commission. Why can't we revive this? So as much as we take on that arrangement, let me also say, as CSO, we think that there are these glaring gaps in terms of how we work with. We would like to work more and benefit more from our partnership with the commission. So we need those one-to-one meetings. I've said this several times, even in other forums. I don't know what is the problem. You can start by engaging the executive secretary and say, we would like to book all commissioners. So sometimes it can happen that when they have their regular commission meetings, they can set a day to interface with us as civil society. Or within that day, they can actually set aside maybe an hour to say, let us interface. So all our expectations will be clarified and we can get a proper response. I hope this message is clear. These are your people, but once they have been appointed to the commission, they are on their own. Why is that so? There was an observation about the presence of the commission. This is actually one of the things we recognized when we are preparing our current strategic plan, the accessibility of the commission. So far, we only have 2 active offices, the head office in LILONGWE and the regional office in Blantyre. We are about to open an office in Mzuzu, but it's not yet fully operational. Our officer is there, but we are making arrangements with the government to actually to identify space. Once that is done, we should be making progress. Nevertheless, is that enough? The answer is no. Why is it that legal aid, for instance, is now available in about 23 districts, and the Human Rights Commission is available only in 2 districts? Which should be bigger, Human Rights Commission and legal aid? Definitely Malawi Human Rights Commission. So we also are reflecting on this in view of our operational structure to make sure that we should have our presence in as many districts as possible. And thanks, Mr. Lukere, for making that observation. I think the other observations about the need for us to holistically look at all the laws that are affecting our operations, including issues of early warning system. Yes, points taken. Let us work on that. And let us also do it in collaboration. I think ideas about utilizing some retired professionals, including members from the judiciary, that would indeed help. At the end of the day, we want institutions that are effective. The Malawi Human Rights Commission should be effective. Civil society should also be effective. On that note, I joined the moderator in warming up to the summary words from the Executive Director for Ngora, where he has indicated opportunities for further engagement. This is very encouraging because most CSOs would be very sad to actually face closure in the face of the law. So the law is not intended for to actually have us close, but the law is there to be enforced. So it is good that we can engage them, and also let us engage in good faith. And those that are deliberately not following the law and yet they have the capacity, should actually reconsider their position, because we might be sending a bad message to the rest of the players. In conclusion, I would like to say this. Megin brought us here with the report. We have received the report, but this report now has to be acted on. Number one, our consultant, congratulations for a job well done and also good presentation. You have heard what people have said. Let's revise the report and have a final version. Then to Megin, once the report has been finalized, if possible, generate a summary and share with all of us. Why is that so? I'm also saying that each one of us should individually reflect on what we can do. In short, we are saying the consultant has something to do, Megin has something to do, and the Human Rights Commission, as well as other umbrella bodies and networks also, we should reflect in terms of what is our own role. And finally, each of us as individual institutions here present, we should also reflect on what is it that we can take forward from this meeting. If there's going to be a final session after the final report has been finalized, here is my call. Broaden representation for the people to sit and actually receive that report, so that even we can look out at ourselves as rights holders in this respect, but let us also bring on board duty bearers. The civic space, one would ask, in this meeting, we may have needed the police, we might have needed the Minister of Justice, we might have needed the judiciary, and even other representatives of the executive arm of government. So I'm simply saying, let us have a bigger scope whereby we are going to have a conversation with everyone that matters. Makra should also be there. They have been mentioned. So we can talk and talk and talk, but if those that have a stake to make decisions are not there, then we're not doing justice. Otherwise, this was a very good meeting. Once again, thank you, Megin, for bringing us together. It is my hope that I will continue the conversation. With these few remarks, I can now officially declare the meeting ended, but maybe there will be some administrative announcements from the organizers. Thank you so much for your attention.
Another round of applause for our guest. Thank you very much, Mr. Chisi, and we greatly appreciate your presence and the sentiments that you have made, and an appeal towards the end that we need to broaden the scope in terms of engagement. But be assured, we have already by issues that are coming from the report into a policy brief that has key issues and also pointing to the authorities that needs to address them, which we are also going to use as an engagement tool for our respective advocacy work that we intend to do with the report. And also be assured we will be meet the whole commission so that we understand the calendar for the a standalone meeting, or we can be incorporated in their own. So we'll discuss the logistics of doing that later, but be assured we'll take it as a project, as an initiative to engage with the entire commission. The observation we've made is very, very varied, that we expect that when people have been appointed in such positions, coming from our end, they are our ambassadors. But I think it's still an issue of shrinking civic space that we see overall. So we'll be very willing as a project to engage with that with our commissioners. And moving forward, I think the consultant will finalize the report, incorporating all the comments that have been raised in here, and making sure that we have a very comprehensive report, and also the policy brief that I talked about will also incorporate all the comments, and it is going to be shared to all of us for our appreciation, and we'll see how best we can also engage into a proper dissemination of now the final version of the report. Otherwise, thank you so much, each one of us, for coming. Dr. Lombe from Ngora, we greatly appreciate your presence. This is a very important discussion that could not be possible in your absence, because you are a key stakeholder to this discussion. And all of us for making it to this gathering, we don't take that for granted. On behalf of Meijin leadership, feel it in your heart that we greatly appreciate all the contributions that we have made to this process, and collaborate on. Other than that, we have finally come to the very end of our discussion. Two logistical announcement. Lunch is going to be served, I think, in the main restaurant. And as we are going out, for logistics, please see the registration desk for our logistical arrangement. Let me invite Chimwemwe to come and close with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we humbly come before your throne this afternoon, and thanks for being there for us, for intervening in all our deliberation. And we are expecting that whatever we have deliberated on this forum is going to transform our country in various aspects. Be with us as we believe in this place and protect us. In Jesus' name, Lord, I've prayed. Amen.
Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause to ourselves for being part and parcel of this very important discussion. And the meeting is closed. Thank you.
With that prayer, I've come to the end of a live broadcast of a workshop that has validated a report done by Malawi Economic Justice Network, merging with support from the NCA DCA Malawi office, and a lot of which whether the space for the Civic is shrinking or expanding. We have heard it all. I have been Sam Kalimba, and I've heard Henry and Gerard. Thank you for watching Lunta Television. Keep watching in the next other programs that we provide.